Reclaiming Science from the Atheists. Welcome to the Skywatch TV studios. I'm Derek Gilbert. Our guest in studio today, as we prepare for an interview for Skywatch TV, is the author of the new book, Cherubim Chariots, but also his first book, worthy of some discussion as well. If you're not familiar with this, you really owe it to yourself to add this to your reference library. Quantum Creation. Josh Peck, welcome.
Thank you.
Why is it that science and religion so often seem to be diametrically opposed?
Well, it's interesting because they used to be one and the same. Years and years ago, science and religion complemented each other, and I believe that's how it should be. Somewhere along the line, science branched off from religion, and now we have two separate things which still should be connected. But when you have, I think it has a lot to do with interpretation versus observation. We can observe something and know it's true, but the meaning that we put on that, that's the interpretation. So scientific interpretations don't always agree with religious interpretations and vice versa. So when we learn how to strip off a person's interpretation and just look at the observation, be it from science or religion, we see that when we do that, they do still fit perfectly, as well they should. You know, science is just the study of God's creation. When you look at it for what it is, they should go hand in hand, and they do, even in a topic as seemingly confusing as quantum physics. So somewhere along the line they branched off, but I still say it's possible that they can merge again.
So what is it about quantum physics and the study of the nature of reality that has pitted science against religious faith, especially Christian faith? You know, why is it that scientists look at this particular aspect of science as incompatible with a belief in God?
Well, I believe it's because there's so little observation, so they have to replace all of that lack of observation with interpretation.
Okay.
You know, things like string theory has never been observed. I do believe it's an adequate model. It very well could be true. It probably is. It doesn't have anything to do with our faith if that turns out to be true, but they can't observe it. You know, they can't observe strings creating these particles. So because of that, they have to fill that in with something. They fill it in with their own interpretations, and there have been documentaries made doing that. One in particular called "What the Bleep Do We Know?" Awful documentary, if I can say so, but it does show how science will take a lot of liberties in putting their own interpretation and calling it science. And to be fair, sometimes we as Christians do that as well. We'll take a Bible verse and put our own interpretation into it and call it doctrine. And that's not always the case. Things are up to interpretation.
Read into it what we want to see.
Exactly.
Eisegesis instead of exegesis.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, so we even take certain liberties with that. And to a certain extent, that's okay, you know, with non-salvation issues. With core doctrinal issues like, how do we get to heaven? Who is Jesus? We can't bend on that. But you know, other things are open to interpretation. We can talk about them, and same goes for science.
Now, what the bleep do we know? And what was it about that documentary that you found?
Well, it was about 10% science, 90% interpretation.
Speculation?
Speculation is a great word for it. You know, I personally wouldn't recommend it unless you're going into it with watching it with the right lens, to just see how a lie can so easily be promulgated and people accept it. You know, throughout the documentary, they don't even say who the specialists are, who they even are, until the very end.
So you don't know what their worldview is and what particular biases they bring to their interpretation.
You find out at the very end, most of them are New Age philosophers, yoga instructors, people like that. I think there were only one or two that were actual scientists of some sort. But most of that documentary is interpretation. We see that so much in the scientific community. Now, there are a lot of great scientists out there that I believe are searching for the truth, even if they're doing it outside of a biblical lens. And it's like, oh, you're so close. Just put God in there and you'll have it.
Well, let's talk about that in more depth in another update here. What was your goal in writing Quantum Creation?
Well, I wanted to show, first off, that quantum physics doesn't have to be as seemingly impossible to understand as what scientists will say. basically a lot of them use a lot of big words, but when you can peel that back and just look at the main concepts, it's pretty simple. String theory, I actually didn't have to talk too much about it in the book because it is a pretty simple concept. It just states that the further down you go, you have particles that are made of subatomic particles, and then those particles are made of vibrating strings. That's basically it. That's what string theory is. Also, a big thing in quantum physics talks about extra dimensions, which I'm just fascinated by. And what really piqued my interest in it was when I discovered you don't have to be you don't have to have a degree or be any kind of real genius to understand this stuff. The concepts are fairly simple. As well, they should be if it's God's creation. You know, they're available to everybody. So that's what I really wanted to show in this book, the simplicity of God's design, even in its complexity.
Josh Peck is the author of the book Quantum Creation. He's also the author of the new book Cherubim Chariots, and he'll be a guest in a future episode of Skywatch TV. Look forward to that conversation. It will be fascinating. For Skywatch TV, I'm Derek Gilbert.